Good morning, everyone. This is Rosnu Lepcha from Department of Commerce. We will understand the concept vividly, known as the tragedy of commons today. The tragedy of commons simply means that it is a situation in which individuals acting independently and rationally according to their own self-interest overuse and deplete a shared limited resources, even though it is not in anyone's long-term interest for this to happen. Or in other words, tragedy of commons simply means the situation where there is overutilization of resources by every individual. Now let us go way back to 1833, where William Floyd came up with the concept known as the common pastures, where people without owners of the pasture were used by multiple herders. So the pastures which was not owned by any individual was used by all the individuals. Okay, so each adds more animals to increase the profit. So each individual is adding more animals to increase the profit. And he noticed that simply because in the short term, there is a self-interest of the people, and then the people are increasing their profit because of the utilization of the common pastures, which is not being owned by any individual. They started overutilization of that resources, and the owners started buying more cows to gaze in the pasture. All right. So on the other hand, we see that the owners who owned the pasture, individual owners who owned the pasture, they utilized the resources in a limited amount and sustainably, rather than the owners who did not own the pasture. Okay. So from here, what we can see is we see that there is overutilization of resources. Right? And there is what? If the people do not own certain resources, then there is overutilization by every individual, which is causing the depletion of the resources and exploitation of the resources. Now, coined by ecologist Garrett Hardin in 1968, he describes tragedy of commons as individuals act independently in their own self-interest to deplete shared resources. So individuals are acting independently on the shared resources, and the resources is getting depleted, which will lead to the long-term loss for everyone. Here we can see that common shared resources like air, water, land, what is happening is everyone is using it. All the resources are getting overused. And in the end, what is happening is that everybody is lost, because everyone is overutilizing the resources. Each individual is overutilizing the resources. And in the end, everybody is having to pay the loss. And there is individual, in the short run, maybe there is benefit for individual, but in long run, collectively, they are bearing the cost. Some of the modern examples of tragedy of commons which we can see is overfishing in oceans, where the fishermen are overfishing in the oceans, and there is the fishes are getting a decrease in quantity. The population of fish is getting decreased. There is deforestation, where there is overcutting of trees, and air and water pollution, climate changes, tariff congestions. These are the examples we can see in our day-to-day life due to tragedy of commons. Now, why does it happen? Why is there occurrence of tragedy of commons? Number one, we can see is lack of regulations of rules. The rules has to be regulated in order to stop the overutilization of resources. Second, we can see is no individual ownership. If nobody is owning a plot of land or nobody is owning a certain area, then of course there will be overutilization of resources by all the people. Short-term thinking, people only think of today rather than thinking about tomorrow. So what is happening in that case is that people are overutilizing the resources, they are gaining profit, but in long run, everybody is at loss. Fourth, we can see is people assume others will take more, so they rush to do the same. So people are assuming that others might take profit, others might utilize the resources more, so they are rushing to, to do the same. So in that, again, there is overutilization of resources. The consequences which everybody has to bear because of this situation is that there is depletion of resources. Number one, we can see is that resource depletion. Because of the overutilization of resources, of course, all the resources will eventually get depleted. Environmental degradation, there is degradation in the environment. There is chances of having high pollutions because of deforestations, and animals, wildlife sanctuaries, wildlife animals are also, their lives are also at stake. Animals might get extinct because of the overutilization of these resources. Loss of biodiversity, there is economic loss, global conflict over resources. So these are the consequences which every individual has to bear if there is overutilization of resources. Now, some of the solution which we can put forward in order to stop this tragedy of commons is that, number one, government regulations. We can put forward laws, quotas and fines in order to limit the use of resources. Example, limit on overfishing, regulation on population level, zoning laws to protect natural habitat. So we can also put forward these zoning laws to protect the natural habitats. Second, we can do is privatization. We can assign ownership or responsibility. Example, assign fishing quotas so that the fishermen, individual fishermen has the right to do the fisheries, but rather than that, other people are not allowed to do the same. Or we can also put forward private company managing water supply. Fourth, we can see is that community management, where there is corporation and rules, and also sustainable practice, where we can save our resources for today, keeping in mind the future generation. Okay, coming to conclusion, the tragedy of common shows how shared resources can be misused. Collective responsibility is key, and sustainable use ensure future survival. Thank you.